Okay, I wanted to go over this supplemental math handout for chapter 7 and 8. Um, Questions like these will appear on the exam, so it is vital that you do go through all of these examples with me and really understand these concepts. So the first major concept we're going to cover is what we call day supply. So day supply is how many days a prescription will last. This is important for every prescription we fill in the pharmacy because we're going to have to submit this information to the insurance company. The insurance company will want to know how long a prescription is supposed to last because that's going to determine when it can be refilled next. So the formula for calculating day supply, we're always going to take the quantity that's being dispensed and we're going to divide that by the quantity taken per day. Now, per day is very important because, some drugs you take multiple times a day. So we're going to look at the total quantity per day. So this first example I have here, it looks like it's an as-needed pain medication. So when we interpret this SIG, remember for patients, we always include a verb. So take 1 to 2 tablets by mouth every 4 to 6 hours as needed for pain. The quantity that's being dispensed is 50. So anytime you see the number or the pound sign, that's going to indicate your quantity. So we're giving them a total of 50 tablets. They're taking 1 to 2 every 4 to 6 hours as needed. So they can decide, depending on their pain level, how much they're going to take at one time and how many times a day as well. So when we're figuring out this quantity taken per day, if you have an as-needed medication like this where they can decide, we always assume that they're taking the most tablets allowed. So here we would assume that they're going to take 2 tablets. And we also assume that they're going to take it the most often. So if you're taking something every 4 hours, that's going to be 6 times a day because there are 24 hours in a day. If we divide that by 4, that would give us 6. Now, if you're taking something every 6 hours, well, 24 divided by 6 would give us 4. So that means you're only taking it 4 times a day. So we always assume the most often as well. So we're going to assume that they're taking this 6 times a day. They're taking 2 tablets 6 times a day. So to figure out how many they're taking in a day, we would take 2 times 6. So that gives us a total of 12 tablets per day. So now we have figured out our quantity per day. So we have this part here. Now remember the quantity dispensed, we said that that was 50. So now we're just going to plug that into this equation here. So quantity dispensed is 50 divided by 12. That gives us 4.2. Now when you're calculating day supply, we only care about the whole number of days that a prescription will last. So in this case, it's lasting a total of 4 days and then roughly, a partial day as well. But we always round down to the nearest whole number. Even if this decimal would have been an 8 or a 9, we would submit a 4-day supply because it wouldn't be lasting a total of 5 days. So no matter what your decimal is, just round to the whole number here. So in this case, our day supply would be 4 days. So if they take this prescription, the maximum amount of quantity, maximum amount of times per day, it will last them 4 days. Now, in some cases, a prescriber may write a prescription that has the day supply included. So for example, here we have 2 capsules by mouth every 8 hours for 10 days. So when we're given a day supply and we're given the directions for how much to take at one time, so our dose, and how often they need it, we can calculate the quantity that we should be dispensing. So sometimes if the prescriber indicates the day supply, they will not indicate the quantity. It'll be something that we have to figure out in the pharmacy ourselves. So in this case, our day supply is 10 days because that is how many days the prescription is going to last. Now, if they're taking 2 capsules at a time and they're taking this every 8 hours, we need to figure out how many times a day that is. So there are 24 hours in a day, so 24 divided by 8 gives us 3. So if you take something every 8 hours, you'll be taking that 3 times a day. So they're taking 2 capsules 3 times a day, and they're going to do that for 10 days. So to figure out the total quantity, we can just multiply those numbers here. So 2 capsules 3 times a day for 10 days gives us a total of 60 capsules. So that would be our quantity that we need to dispense to our patient. So chapter 8 just focuses on oral solids, but I want to introduce you to oral liquids as well this week, and just liquids in general. So usually when we're given a solid, we're just given the strength, usually in milligrams. But when we're looking at liquids, the strength is always going to be expressed as a weight per volume. So in this case, in every 5 milliliters of this suspension, there are 250 milligrams of active ingredient. So this is what we consider our strength. So I'll write that up here. Strength is 250 milligrams per 5 milliliters. I could not just say 250 milligrams because that wouldn't tell me anything really about this liquid. I need to know the dose, for every 5 mils, there are 250 milligrams of active ingredient. So this is our stock label. This is what we have in stock on the shelf. This is what the physician is ordering. So they're ordering 300 milligrams by mouth twice a day for 5 days. So if we're interpreting that for the patient, we would need to say, take, and in this case, if we just told the patient to take 300 milligrams, well, this is a liquid. They're not going to know how much to pour out. So we need to figure out the dose volume for the patient. So anytime you're given the strength in milligrams and you have the strength in milligrams per milliliter, we can just use a ratio and proportion to solve for how many milliliters will give us this 300 milligrams. So set your stock strength equal to the ordered dose and then solve for X. So in this case, we have 250 milligrams in every 5 mils, and we need to give them 300 milligrams each time. So if we solve for X, that's going to tell us how many milliliters will give us 300 milligrams. So once you solve this, we're going to cross multiply. So 5 times 300 is 1500. 250 times X is just 250X. Now we need to divide by 250, divide by 250, and X equals 6 milliliters. So now this is a lot better to put into our SIG for the patient. So we would want to say, take 6 milliliters by mouth twice a day or 2 times a day for 5 days. So we have figured out our dose volume. So our dose is 6 mils. Now, if we're looking for the dosage volume, remember dosage is the same thing as our quantity that needs to be dispensed. So if this is our sig, the prescriber could choose to leave off the quantity and make us calculate it because he gave us the day supply and the dose and how many times they need to take that. So just like the last problem when we were determining the quantity here, we can take our 6 mils times 2 times a day times 5 days. So like I have written out here, and that's going to give us a total of 60 milliliters. So that would be our quantity to dispense, which is also known as our dosage. So that's going to last for the entire duration of the prescription. So our day supply in this case would be 5 days. Now, when you're starting out, a lot of students get these two concepts confused. So please keep in mind, day supply is always how many days the prescription will last. And then the quantity is going to be the same thing as our dosage, which is how much we need of our medication to last for that entire duration. All right, so we're going to work through these example problems here. So the first question is asking us to interpret these directions as they should appear on the patient label. So this is a really long sig here. So we'll start out, we see that this is a tablet. It doesn't specify that it's sublingual or anything, so we can just start with take. So it's going to be take 3 tablets by mouth 3 times a day for 2 days. Then the next part of the sig, we have 2 tablets by mouth 3 times a day for 2 days. Then we have 1 tablet by mouth 3 times a day for 2 days. Then 1/2 a tablet by mouth 3 times a day for 2 days. Okay, so we have our extremely long sig here. Now this is common with drugs like prednisone when you need to taper down the dose slowly over time. That's because it's a steroid medication. So the first question says, what is the day supply? Now remember, day supply is how many days the prescription will last. Well, this prescription is kind of broken down into segments because we're changing the directions every 2 days. But the day supply is given to us. So the directions for the first 2, second 2, third 2, and then the fourth 2. So if we are doing the first part for 2 days, next part for 2 more days, that would be a total of 4 days, plus 2 more days would be 6 days, plus 2 more days would be 8 days total. So all we had to do there was just add up each day supply of each prescription change there. So total of 8 days. Now we want to find the quantity that needs to be dispensed. So we want to figure out how many tablets the patient needs to last the entire 8 days. So once again, this is easiest to just break this down by sections. So let's look at this first section here. So if they're taking 3 tablets 3 times a day for 2 days, well, we can multiply those together to find the quantity for this section here. So 3 times 3 is 9, times 2 would be 18 here. And then we're just going to repeat that for each step, each change of the directions here. So this second one, we have 2 tablets 3 times a day for 2 days. So 2 times 3 is 6, times 2 would give us 12 tablets for that section. Now here we have 1 tablet 3 times a day for 2 days. So 1 times 3 is 3, times 2 is 6. So we need 6 tablets in this section here. And then we need 1/2 tablet 3 times a day for 2 days. So 1/2 times 3 would be 1.5, times 2 would be 3. So here we need a total of 3 tablets for this section. So now to find my total amount, I would just add these together. So we have 18 plus 12 plus 6 plus 3. That gives us a total of 39 tablets to dispense. So that would be our quantity. If we dispense 39 tablets, that will last them for the entire duration of the 8 days. Okay, this next one here, we have an eye drop. So this is dispensed in a 5 milliliter bottle. The directions here say 1 to 2 drops in each eye 2 times a day for 10 days. So the verb that we use for eye drops, we wouldn't just say take 1 to 2 drops. We prefer to say instill. So instill 1 to 2 drops in each eye 2 times a day for 10 days. Now, the next question says, what is the day's supply to be submitted to the insurance company? Okay, so with eye drops, even though the prescriber has said that they only want the patient to take this for 10 days, this bottle has a total of 5 milliliters in it. So it could last more than 10 days. So depending on how much we're dispensing, we still need to calculate that day's supply, because if it's longer than 10 days, that's what we need to submit to the insurance company. So when we're looking at the day supply here, our quantity that's being dispensed is in milliliters. So remember, we need to find quantity dispensed, and we need to divide that by the quantity taken per day. That is the equation for day supply, okay? So if our quantity is in milliliters, well, let's figure out what we're taking in a day. So we're doing 1 to 2 drops in each eye. So that's important because we have 2 eyes. We're doing that 2 times a day. So whenever we have a SIG that the patient can decide how much to take at one time, we always assume the most. So we're going to assume that they're going to take 2 drops each time, and they're going to do that in each eye. So 2 times 2, that would be 4 drops, and they're going to do that twice a day. So we need to take that times 2 again. So 2 times 2 is 4, times 2, that would be 8 drops per day. So that's our quantity taken per day. Now, our quantity is in milliliters. Our quantity taken per day is in drops. So we cannot just plug these units in. We need to make them equivalent to each other. So the easiest way, I think, to do this would be to figure out how many drops are we actually dispensing. So if you look at your conversion chart from last week, or if you remember from last week's lecture, we know that 1 milliliter is equal to 20 drops. So we can figure out how many drops we're giving them by setting that equal to our 5 ml bottle. So if 1 ml is 20 drops, set that equal to 5 mLs over X. 20 times 5 is 100. 1 times X is just X. So X is 100 drops. So we are giving them 100 drops. That is our quantity that's being dispensed. Now that both of these units are the same, now we can plug that into our equation. So the quantity to be dispensed is 100 drops, and the quantity taken per day is 8 drops. So all we need to do is divide that. So 100 divided by 8, that gives me 12.5. Now, if you remember our rule, we always round down to the nearest whole number. So even though this is 5, I don't round up to 13 because this isn't lasting a full 13 days. It's only lasting a full 12 days. And this is longer than the prescribed day supply. So to the insurance company, I would submit a 12-day supply. Okay, a few more examples here. Here we have another oral suspension, so similar to that example we had on the back of this sheet here. So the first question, we're looking for the dose volume. So remember, the dose is the amount given at one time. So we have what's in stock here. We have a 500 milligram per 5 ml suspension. So that is our strength, the 500 milligrams per 5. So I'll just write that here so we can get used to that. 500 milligrams per 5 ml. Now my directions are 750 milligrams by mouth every 12 hours for 7 days. So the dose here is 750 milligrams. Now to find the dose volume, remember we always just take our strength and set it equal to the dose being ordered here. So 500 milligrams per 5 mils equals 750 milligrams over X. Now 750 times 5 gives us 3,750. And I'm going to set that equal to 500x. Now to get x by itself, we need to divide by 500, divide by 500. X equals 7.5. So that would be 7.5 milliliters. That would be how much we need to give at one time. Now remember, when you're writing your directions for a liquid, it's much better to give the patient a liquid measurement rather than a weight measurement, because there's no way they're going to know how to pour out 750 milligrams if we are using a solution. So we have to make that calculation and enter that into our SIG as well. So in this case, we would say take 7.5 mils by mouth every 12 hours for 7 days. Now, the next question says, what's the day supply? So how long is this prescription going to last? Well, it tells us here in our SIG, it's going to last a total of 7 days. Now, the quantity to be dispensed, that's the same thing as our dosage. So to find that, we're going to look at our dose. So we're taking 7.5 mils. And if we're taking that every 12 hours, Well, there's 24 hours in a day. 24 divided by 12 gives us 2 times a day. So 2 times per day. So 7.5 times 2 times per day times our 7 days. So 7.5 times 2 is 15 times 7 gives us 105 milliliters. So I'll write that out. We took 7.5 mils times 2 times per day times 7 days, and that gave us 105 milliliters. So that's our dosage, which is also our quantity that we need to dispense. Okay, here we have a label for an inhaler, and my directions are 1 to 2 puffs every 4 to 6 hours as needed for shortness of breath. So for an inhaler, the verb that we would want to use would be inhale. So inhale 1 to 2 puffs every 4 to 6 hours as needed for shortness of breath. So we have my SIG there. Now it says, what is our day supply? Well, if you take a look at this label, which it may be a little hard to see here on the recording here. So right there at the bottom, it says there are 200 metered inhalations. So there are 200 puffs in this inhaler. So our quantity that we're dispensing would be 200 puffs. And remember, we need to divide that by how many puffs they're taking per day. So when we have these situations where the patient can decide, we always assume the most. So we assume that they're going to take 2, and we also want to assume that they take it the most often. So remember, every 4 hours would be 6 times a day. Every 6 hours would only be 4 times a day. So we're going to assume they're taking that 6 times a day. So if they're taking 2 puffs 6 times a day, 2 times 6 would be 12 puffs per day. So quantity dispensed, 200 divided by quantity taken per day. So 200 divided by 12 gives us 16.6 repeated. Now, even though this is more than 5, this is only lasting a full 16 days. So that is the day supply that we would submit to the insurance company. Okay, last example here. I'll cross that out so we don't get confused there. So this is an example of a gel. So here we have Voltaren gel, 1%, that's our strength here. And we're dispensing a quantity of 100 grams. Now, AAA, that stands for apply to the affected area. Apply 2 grams to the affected area 4 times per day. So apply 2 grams to the affected area 4 times per day. Now, once again, we're looking for day supply. So remember that is quantity dispensed divided by quantity taken per day. So our quantity being dispensed, we're giving them 100 grams. Now we need to find out how many grams that they're going to be taking per day. So if they're doing 2 grams 4 times a day, well, 2 times 4 would be 8 grams per day. So 100 divided by 8 gives us 12.5. So it's going to last a full 12 days. Round down to the nearest whole number. That's the day supply that we would submit to the insurance company.